And Olivia Newton-John came on the screen. Now, there's a bunch of you maybe under 40 who don't know who Olivia Newton-John is. Shame on you, all right? She passed away a couple years ago, but listen, because I went to Christian school, Napa Christian, home of the Trojans, thank you, I fell in love with Olivia at the beginning of the movie Grease. I was 15, 1978. Some of my bad friends fell in love with her at the end of the movie when she looked like this. Yeah. No, that's not the Olivia I fell in love with, all right? I fell in love with this Olivia. Now, here's the problem. I tell anyone who listen, but high schoolers and college kids this all the time. The best thing about being in love is when someone loves you back, right? Olivia never did. I never heard from her. I bought our albums. Listen, this is only for you old people. I watched Xanadu a couple times. Anybody? Yeah, thank you. Just a handful of us, all right? I know the love song from Xanadu. Would you like to hear a little bit of it? No. My wife and I can sing it. So listen, the best thing about being in love is when someone loves you back. And I was hopelessly devoted to Olivia Newton-John. Never loved me back. What about you? How's your new year going? What are you in love with? What are you invested in? We're a few weeks into the new year and like new year, new you, fresh start and everything. How's it going so far? No matter where you are. We decided a few weeks ago to start a new series because we know that the people who love life the most or feel most fulfilled or are successful and like feel like they're accomplishing something, all based on one thing, is the decisions that they made. That we talked about that the quality of our decisions determine the quality of our life. And that's just really simple. That's no agreement and disagreement. It's just if you make good decisions, good things happen. Doesn't mean that life is perfect, but our decisions, we make our good decisions, and our decisions make us. So we decided to pre-decide. That's why we talked about this, named this series what it is. And like, you have to think ahead of time. You can't just at the last minute or whatever mood you're in. So we decide when faced with whatever situation, you fill in the blank, I have pre-decided to blank. Like to think ahead of that you pre-decide, so you're not taken off guard. And so week one, we said, with God's help, I'm ready. I'm ready to take my life back. I'm ready for life not to control me, but for me to control my life. I'm ready to start fresh and start new, no matter what age I am, no matter where I've been in life, I'm ready. Because if I don't take control of life, life's going to take control of me, and then I'm going to wonder, how did I get here? Week two, last week, we said, I'm consistent. And we talked about that last Friday was a national holiday, was Quitter's Day. That people made New Year's resolutions, usually by the second Friday in January, they quit. And so we said, with God's help, I'm going to be consistent. Because successful people do consistently what other people only do randomly. So we decided, first week, I'm ready. Second week, I'm consistent. And the difference between, if you're a karate expert, the difference between a white belt and a black belt is a black belt is a white belt that never quit. Just showed up and kept going. So this morning, with God's help, I want to talk about what it means to be devoted. And not hopelessly devoted, but hopefully devoted. And what that looks like when it comes to God. And a connection with God through Jesus, his son. And if that's new information for you, if you've not heard that before and you're like, this is too much, just hang in there. Because I think there's something for everybody, no matter where you've come from or how many times you've been to church. There's something for you when we talk about the power of devotion. Super important. Jesus comes along and he says, but seek first God's kingdom. Seek first God's righteousness. Then all this other stuff, all these things will be given to you as well. all the stuff that you're working for, pursuing, hoping for, Jesus says, and we may not believe him yet, it's okay, but Jesus says, if you seek first God, his desires, his direction, his control, you're gonna get everything you wanted anyway. So, being devoted, for you to say, I am devoted, you would say, I will seek first the one who matters most. And what would that look like? I'm going to seek Jesus first. I'm going to put him in first place because he matters most to me. Now, listen, if you've been in church a while or even you're new, when I hear stuff like that, I immediately react inside. Because when I was younger, growing up in a pastor's home, sermons like this would be just like, yeah, that's not me. I can't do that. I'm not perfect. I can't do that. And we're not talking about perfection. We're talking about consistency. We're not talking about you being perfectly devoted. We're talking about the fact that God's so devoted to you that our response is a little bit easier when we understand that. But sometimes it's just overwhelming, and I can't do that. So we talk about devotion, and sometimes it feels like starting a workout or going to CrossFit or starting some kind of eating routine. And like, I've done that before, it's too much. So in the next 20 minutes, I'm just saying, hang in there. And if you feel a little bit, whether you're sitting in Brewster or Chelan or online, if you feel a little bit like, Kyle's being a little harsh right now, or Kyle seems a little judgmental, or Kyle, I'm not trying to be that way. I'm trying to coach you more than anything. And sometimes coaches raise their voice. The good coaches don't call names, but sometimes a coach has to say, hey, try this, or have you thought about this? So next few minutes, I just want you to hang in there with me. And if you feel a little like you want to push back, just wait till I'm done, and then you can push back. See, after Jesus was on the earth, lived his life, 3 years he taught as much as he could to people who would listen. He gave up his life willingly on the cross, and that, the Bible teaches us, that's because we were messed up, we needed a Savior. Then he proved he wasn't just a dude, and he rose from the dead, and then he ascended into heaven, and the Bible says he's at the right hand of God. What happened then? The first century followers of Jesus, it's all contained in this historical book called Acts. The first century followers of Jesus, the book of Acts says this: they devoted themselves to prayer. They devoted themselves to apostles' teaching, to fellowship, and to the breaking of bread. And the word devoted there it's a Greek word that means continually devoted. They didn't just show up one time for a potluck. They continually, over and over and over again, showed up, listened to the teachings of Jesus as delivered by the current apostles and disciples, hung out with each other, and with other people who were moving in the same direction towards walking with Jesus. They had a meal together. They prayed. I bet they prayed and prayed and prayed because they needed help. They were under attack and persecution. They were devoted. And they weren't devoted to a church. They were devoted to God, and this is how it lived out. Look what happened. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. We all get together, and then we're just so amazed at what God's doing. That he's using these people in our lives. It's pretty incredible. It's so worth, if we're going to devote ourselves to something, it's so worth showing up and devoting ourselves to time and apostles' teaching and fellowship and a meal and prayer. Because look what happened. And here's my favorite part of this passage. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. You know what happened? People who are far from God or felt far from God were moved in the direction to God and became part of their circle and started their own devoting time to God. That the Christians gathering wasn't just about the Christians being devoted to each other and to God. There was always a component as, hey, we're doing this so that other people who are far from God can experience real life as well. That's what they were devoted to that. You heard Pastor Megan say in the reel, our small groups team came up with these purposes, our life groups, all right? And we talk about them, not enough. We launched them last fall, and we continue to. And some of you have participated in our Life Group since we started. And learn, invest, and follow, and engage is all the same thing that the first church was doing in the book of Acts. They showed up and they learned truth. They invested in each other by sharing a meal or an activity. They learned new ways, new disciplines, new actions of how to live that out. And then, not so that we don't become stale, we engage in the community around us by meeting needs individually or together as a group. Now, it's all good and well on a Sunday morning then. And you're like, yeah, yay, Kyle. It's a good sermon. Be devoted. All of us run into the same problem. We only got 168 hours, right? What do you do with your 168 hours a week? 168 hours equals 1 week. If you look up on here, each of these lines represents 1 hour in your week. Don't count them. I don't know. I just put a bunch on there, and I said it'd be 168. I quit counting at 12, so I don't know how many there are up there. But let's pretend there's 168 lines up there. Each one of them represents an hour. What do you do with it? Well, first of all, if you're like, I'm going to be so devoted, I'm giving all my 168 hours to Jesus. No, you're not. Because 8 of those hours, you're going to be sleeping. 1/3 of your time, you should be sleeping. And if you're not, shame on you, get more sleep. All right? 1/3 of your time, you're going to be at work or school, doing something that's moving you forward or providing for you and your family. And you're like, okay, I'm devoted to Jesus when I sleep, and I'm devoted to Jesus when I work and go to school. Okay, but those things, you have to be devoted to your job. You have to get some sleep. So all of us have to sleep and go to work or go to school or something like that, right? Then there's another, that leaves us 56 hours, which is still a lot in a week. What are you going to do with your 56 hours? Well, not picking on anybody. If you're on social media, on TikTok, on Snapchat, on Instagram, on the Facebook, whatever they are, okay? And you got a bunch of new ones. On Be Real. What is that? I don't want anyone to know what I'm doing ever. Leave me alone, all right? If you're not laughing, you're over 40. So social media. So that leaves 39 hours left. What are you going to do with it? Well, most of us are taken up with, I didn't have a term for it, with other stuff. Right? If you got kids, you are driving them somewhere constantly all the time. You've got chores around the house. You got to clean. You got to go to the gym. You have to show up to your kids' activities. Maybe you binge watch something on Netflix. You spend time with your friends. Maybe you have a commute. Maybe you go to an adjunct. I mean, really, when you looks at, we fill up all the other stuff. That's a full week, and it's done, right? Except for maybe, again, I'm not trying to be harsh. Just stay with me. It leaves us 1 hour for God. And you guys are using it right now as you sit here. I'm devoted to God. Why? Well, because I go to church. I give 1 good hour. And some of you are like, wait a minute, I got here early. Okay, you give an hour and 15? I'm not putting you down. I'm saying everybody has 168 hours to do something with. What are you doing with your 168? Can I just give you a couple hints, tips of how to take your week, your 168 hours, how to take that and be devoted to God? And you're like, wait a minute, I'm not that far yet. Okay, just hold on to the end. But if you're like, yeah, I love God, and I would love to be more devoted. I would love to know Him better. Maybe this is new to me, or I used to do that, but it got old for me, or I used to do that, but all of a sudden I woke up and I just kind of faded away from that. Let me give you some hints, all right? First of all, devotion happens intentionally, not accidentally. Nobody just woke up and said, wow, I know a lot about the Bible. Well, how'd that happen? I don't know. It just happened. I was eating my Fruit Loops, and all of a sudden I thought, I know the books of the Bible in order and backwards, and I can do them alphabetically. Wow, how'd you do that? I don't know. Wow, I feel so connected to Jesus and understand everything about him so that I can share it with everybody around me. How did that happen? I don't know. I was just out fishing one day, and all of a sudden it occurred to me, bam, you know a lot about God. It doesn't happen like that, right? It's intentional. We are intentional every other place in our life. I am in love with the lovely Darlene. Just a smidge more than Olivia Newton-John, all right? Darlene was as close to Olivia Newton-John as I can marry, and she said yes. I'm devoted to her. If I give her 1 hour of my 168, that's not devoted. Like, hey, we have a date night every single week. How much time do you spend? 1 hour. Do you do anything else? Do you talk to her? Do you hang out? Do you do chores together? Do you watch TV? No, just the 1 hour. Do you see her during the week? No, we have this arrangement where I'm in the basement, she's up, and when at 1 hour we spend. It's magical, though. No, that's not devotion, right? I'm devoted to being a great championship snowboarder. You have 168 hours a week. How often do you work out? How often do you practice? Just 1 hour. 1 hour a week? Yeah. And you want to make the Olympic team? Yeah. You devoted? Yeah, it's my cause. You're not devoted. Again, I'm just saying. Devotion is time. It's intentional. It doesn't just happen. Jesus is hanging out and just shows up on the earth, and from age 0 to 30, he's just doing his thing. We don't have a lot of information about that. From 30 to 33, he busts open this ministry and just starts teaching. He gathers a posse around him to help him, and he just starts preaching grace and forgiveness that God's offering. And one of those times, he's hanging out, and I feel that he's walking and he wants to make a point. And he stops, and he's right next to a vineyard. Something like this. Now, wait, that's Cardis. I didn't even see the name on there. Sorry, Cardis. I didn't want to offend the other vineyards, the wineries. I had to pick one. I apologize if I've offended you. The reason I picked Cardis is because a small group meets there. It's not because I like the wine, because I don't drink. That's a lie. So yeah, Jesus is just, imagine. Jesus is just walking down Highway 150 with his posse and the group that's always following him to see what they could get from him. And he says this, hey, you guys, listen. I'm the vine. You are all the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, and they're like, what's he talking about? And he's saying, listen, if you remain, and the word remain that he used there is the word that means, let's break it down a little bit. Abide, rest in, live in. It was more than just show up and hang out. Jesus says, I'm the vine, you're the branch. If you hang out here a while, if you sit down in, if you invest in, this is what happens. If you remain in me, I'm the branch, you're the vine. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. I'm not going to dumb this down at all for you because you guys are super smart. Brewster probably a little bit smarter than Chelan people, but super smart, all right? You have the vine. It's the main stalk. Then you have these little branches that come out. That if I get this wrong, Liebeckers, you can let me know later. And then off the branch, you get some grapes. If you take the branch and break it off the vine, that vine is going to die. It's going to be dead. It's not going to produce anything. There's no fruit. But if you stay connected, if the vine and the branch stays connected, it's going to bear much fruit. And when the Bible in the New Testament talks about fruits, it's all the stuff you wish you had in your life and the people you had around you. It's love, it's joy, it's peace, it's patience, it's kindness, it's goodness, it's faithfulness, it's self-control. All the stuff, if you started the new year and say, if I could end this year full of this stuff, this would be fantastic. If my kids could be more loving, more joyful, produce more peace, this would be fantastic. If my friends were more kind and good, and if people around me were more self-control, all the stuff you want. When you stay connected, Jesus says, using an illustration from a vineyard, when you stay connected to him, all the good stuff that you want is produced. But then he adds, and he's not being harsh, then he adds, but apart from me, can't do nothing. You might be a good sleeper. You might be good at work and school. You might be good on social media. But you're not going to produce the stuff that is satisfying and fulfilling. The deep stuff of life that enriches your soul and refreshes who you are and the people around you. So, connection is the solution. Jesus says, if you stay connected to me, you're going to bear fruit. All the stuff in life that you want is going to come out. So what does that look like? You got to have a plan. And again, I apologize, but this is all I know. And you may have a different approach. You may have read a book here or there. But since the age of 14, this has been my plan. I know that connection is the solution. If I don't stay connected to God, everything in my life gets off track. And I could give you, if I trusted you more, I could give you examples of that over my life. When I get disconnected, not that God quits loving me, or even I quit loving God, but when I get disconnected, when I seek first something other than Jesus, when my devotion gets more over here than it does to my walk with Jesus, I get in trouble. Now, you might say, hey, it's all good with me. I don't have a problem. I got 1 hour of my 168. Okay. But in my limited 40 plus years of doing ministry, I'm confident if you don't stay connected in some way and have a plan, you're going to find yourself waking up and say, what happened? How did I get so far away from God? So, you got to have a plan. It's a practical game plan. And here's mine. And I think it's universal. Skip a slide. And skip that one. Thank you. The devotional game plan. First of all, you guys decide how this works for you. But I would recommend it, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You got to have a plan. Number one, pre-decide a time you're going to meet with Jesus. Like, what? Yep, you got 168 hours. What time are you going to hang out with Jesus? Don't worry about what you're going to do there. When are you going to do it? Going to get up earlier than the rest of the family? Like, oh man, I already get up way too early. All right, you're going to stay up a little bit late? Oh, all right, stay up late. Yeah, you got to pre-decide when. If you could have a time, if you had a plan, a devotional plan to meet with Jesus, for you to talk with God and hear from God, when is that going to be? If you don't pre-decide that, it'll never happen. I'm going to get up tomorrow morning, we'll see what happens. It won't take but a couple days where you're like, I got too busy. You have to pre-decide stuff that's important in your life. So pre-decide a time. For me, super easy right now. It's just the lovely Darlene and I at home. I got no kids, no pets, no nothing, just me. So I know I have it easier than you all. Every morning, I get up, and really by about 6:30, I'm in my holy chair doing my plan. All right? Every morning, I know the first thing I'm going to do after I get my coffee is to sit down and start my devotional plan. That moves us to number 2. You got to decide a place. For me, it's the first thing in the morning, and it's in my lazy boy recliner, emphasis on lazy boy. All right? I meet there. That's where my stuff is. That's where Darlene does this inductive Bible study thing, and she underlines stuff, and she circles and everything, and she's like, me, I just get out my phone. Because you have to have a time, which is me the first thing in the morning. You have to have a place that's sitting in my chair in the living room. And you have to have a plan. And for me, that's my phone. You have some choices. We live in this great digital age where like the church somehow, and some of us think the internet is bad. Well, it is. There's a lot of stuff on there. Ask your high schoolers. But the internet is good. You know how many people know about Jesus because of the internet? The internet's good. There's a bunch of good stuff on there. So for me, and I would recommend for you, or whatever you want to do, the YouVersion Bible app, go to your app store. It's in the normal app store if you have an Apple phone like God intended, or it's on the other thing in Google that Satan intended. Whatever you do, wherever you get your apps, go get the YouVersion Bible app. We make nothing on it. YouVersion makes nothing on it. They give all their stuff away for free. And on there, you can sign up for a plan. You can read the Bible in a version you can understand. If you've read the Bible before and you say, I don't even understand it, then you're reading the wrong version. Move to the New International Version. Move to the Message version. Do something. But you have to have a plan. When you pick a time and you pick a place, then you have to have a plan. And maybe your plan is, I'm going to sit there and I'm just going to sing worship songs some days. Okay? Maybe you're going to want to work through a book. Maybe you have another friend who's doing that. And so you read a little bit and then you fill in some answers. Great. Maybe you want to do the sermon discussion guide that Pastor Megan puts together. It's done almost every week by Sunday afternoon based on this sermon, and you can do that on your own. But you have to have a plan. What's your plan? You may some days, and I do this, I know it's weird. Some days I'll get done reading, and I do this other devotional from Pastor Chuck Swindoll, and I've been doing it for years and everything. I'll just sit there and I'll say, okay, God, I'm listening. What am I missing? And a lot of your names come up. Some of you I pray for. Some of you I ignore. Now, if your name comes up, I pray for you. Or it'll be like, yeah, Kyle, you were a jerk last night with your tone to your wife. I'm going to pray about that. And I'll just listen. Sometimes I talk more than I listen because I'm just like, God, you got to know some stuff because it is not going well down here. Sometimes, the worst of times, my prayer is just one word. It's just help. We're lost here. But I got a time, I got a place, and I have a plan. And not because I'm great. Because I can't live devoted to Jesus without it. This is a place where, and I know this is a lot, and we're almost done. There's a place there where a lot of us look at Jesus, God, as just an add-on, as just a couple lines on our 168 hours. But really, I don't want to live with God. God's not a part of my life. God is my life. I know that through failure. I know that through success. I know that through from disappointment. I know that through hopeful times of pain. That I don't want God to just be an add-on. I don't want him just to be another app. I want God to be my life. I want to live devoted to that. And when I feel myself, we said last week, if you're going to work out and be consistent, if you miss one day, don't miss two. All right. Same way with devotion to God. Like, man, I had a bad day today. Okay, well, get back in. Come on. Get back to the easy chair. Slow down and listen to what God's saying. Read a little extra until you hear God speak. God's not a part of your life. God is your life. It's the best way to be devoted. Let me give you a couple next steps and we're out of here. Both in Brewster and Chelan, when you walked in, we gave you a handout, and inside there's a blue card. It's our connection card. If you're listening online or even sitting in Brewster or Chelan, you can go online to our app, and there's an online connection card. If you want to make a comment, if you have a question, if you have a prayer request, we have a whole team of people that will pray for your requests and follow up with you as well. As we think about being devoted to God, that seeking first the one who means the most. Let me give you 3 quick steps. The first one's easy. Develop a personal devotion plan. Just let's pre-decide that right now. You decide right now. I'm not so sure about that. Okay, just do it for a week then. I don't have any time. Yeah, 15 minutes in the morning. Just get out of bed earlier. I don't know, I need my sleep. Okay, just 1 week. And I would just ask yourself this week, what are you doing with your 168? What are you doing with the 168 hours you have? Because there's a place, old people, you with me? There's a place when you get to be 60 and older and you look back and say, I wish I would have used my time better. If you're sitting here, you're 14, 15, you're like, I got so many 168s left, you really do. Don't waste it. 2, as soon as you pre-decide, as soon as you decide, you know what? I understand what God's done for me. I understand the goodness of God. I want to live devoted back. As soon as you decide and you make a plan, you're going to like, I'm going to get up in the morning. I'm going to meet at this place. I'm going to do this activity. Bam, there's going to be some kind of distraction, and you got to push past the distraction. There's always a reason not to do something. Whether it's going to boot camp, which I try to do and almost every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I go for a little jog on Thursdays and Saturdays. Saturday, Darlene got up and said, hey, what are you doing? I said, I'm sitting here trying to come up with reasons why I'm not going to go run. There's always, I can give you 10 reasons why I shouldn't run. And only one why I should. Push past the distractions. You pre-decided. So there's going to be some, listen, if it's not important, you'll find an excuse. If it's important, you'll find a way. And you have to pre-decide that it's important, or you're just going to go by your emotions. If it's important to stay connected to God and devoted to God for you and your family, then you'll find a way to do that. Finally, if you're here this morning, you're like, man, this is a lot of devotion stuff, Kyle. In fact, people told me I could come to this church, it wouldn't be so hard-hitting. Kind of like, Kyle, lighten up, Francis. Just back off a little bit. Let me, give me some space. All right. I acknowledge that. I would encourage you, where this God talk is new, Jesus, salvation, the Bible, it's all new. I would encourage you to consider this. Stop hiding from the one who's seeking you. If you're a follower of Jesus, I would encourage you that you seek first the one who loves you most. But if you're not yet a follower of Jesus, I would say, why are you hiding from the person, the love, the power, the goodness that comes from knowing God? He is seeking you. He's pursuing you. And he's not chasing you because he's mad. He's chasing you because he's in love with you. And for some of us, we have hid so long. And maybe it's stuff that we've done in the past. Maybe it's stuff we're doing currently. Maybe it's stuff that was done to us in the past. Maybe we've been offended or hurt by people who called themselves Christians, or been hurt by whole churches. And you're like, no, I'm just going to protect myself. And in the process of protecting yourself from other people and other bad influences, you've missed out and you've hid and you kept yourself from the goodness of God. So if you're here this morning, you're sitting in Brewster online, I would just encourage you, today's your day to say, I don't know how to live it out completely, but I do know I need a Savior. I do know I got mess in my life and I haven't been able to clean up myself. And I don't know how to wash myself clean and make myself perfect, but I'm going to accept that Jesus does. And you can make that decision just sitting where you're at. The beautiful thing about the teachings of Jesus and what we know about God is that he is devoted to us even when we struggle with devotion. That he loves us even when we struggle to love back. That he is faithful to us even when we are unfaithful. And I think that's something worth celebrating and be devoted to.